And this goes beyond AI. This is even before you involve AI. We have to get people interested enough in preserving the history beyond the oral tradition. And the oral tradition is very important, but stories get changed, people forget things, so we have to start to document this. And there need to be lots of historians, African historians, that will document.
But how did you get into the media yourself? What led you there? You're already a professor. You could say you already are made, as it were, no? But you still decide to create the content so that you are doing what you are preaching and preaching what you are doing. That is really very interesting for me. But how did you start that part of it?
Some people were just doing things like this. Some people were out and about doing live streams of their city. It was I spent so much time on those apps. It was absolutely wonderful. So I said, I want to do that too. But I knew, and this is again something else I teach, you can't just jump into the space. Maybe sometimes you can, but it's good to have an idea of who else is doing what you're doing out there and what is in the space. My name is Chetachi Egwu. I'm known as Dr. Tachi. I'm a media professor, a filmmaker, a media content producer, and also a journalist. And I am the founder of a new network called Indie Soup Media.
In the soup media, I think
Yes.
we need to spend a few seconds there. In the soup media, what is it? Is soup, Dr. Tachi?
So Indie Soup Media is a network. It's not all. It is on TV. So it is an OTT, or an over-the-top network, which means you can download an app on, if you have a Roku device, and you're able to download the app and watch our content that way. But you can also watch the content on our website, indiesoupmedia.tv, also on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook Live. And if anybody still uses X, you can watch on X as well. We have 24 shows right now by different creators, including myself, and we broadcast from 4 p.m. Eastern time on Monday through Thursday, and then on Friday we start at 5. So our show broadcast day goes till about 9:30, 10 o'clock, depending on the day.
That's interesting. I'm
Yeah.
interested in that. I believe that the people that are listening to us, they are also interested in that. So, what do you cover mostly? What are the topics that you cover there in the soup media?
It's various. So, for example, my show, Mediascope, I talk about media, tech, and pop culture news. I also have a segment called Pop Gumbo, where I cover things that are happening in pop culture, and my segment Be More where I teach people how to be better with video and live stream. But then we have lots of talk shows that cover topics like business, a lot of business related topics, inspirational topics where people are interviewing inspiring people. Also, we have a reality show, which I'm really excited about, called 313 versus Everybody. And they just had their season finale last night. And they're a group of friends and family from Detroit that travel together and go through different things together. So that's absolutely amazing. And then we also have a show, for example, called Safe Space. And that the creator interviews, he's Jamaican, and he interviews people in the LGBTQIA plus community that also happen to be Caribbean, but he also interviews non-Caribbean people as well about their experiences. So just a host of different things. And, I'm excited because we actually, starting on next Sunday, we'll pick up church broadcast because they're interested in coming on. So we have all kinds of content for people to watch.
I remember the last time that you were here, I think we did made mention of the importance of content creation in our community, in the diaspora community, because that is, I want to believe that that is what you are targeting, because that is what we are targeting in Aclasses Media also, because we believe that it is, of course, we do need more people to create content for our community, because we're certainly hundreds of millions of people, as far as I can understand, because in Brazil alone, if you look at it, that is over 100 million people. You go to the US, you go to UK, you go to different parts of Europe, and then of course people in Africa are so interested in what is happening in the diaspora. So we are certainly a huge force in the world.
That we are. And the interesting thing I also want to mention, even though we have the majority of our creators right now, obviously are from the diaspora, but we also have some non-diasporan. We have some people of European descent, etc., that create as well. So
because I think that part where we cross is actually where is the most interesting part, because where you are alone, that can be interesting, but that is not really, there is not a lot of energy there. But when you meet, then something really happened there. That is a spark, no? Because different currents are cutting across there. So yeah, even from the point of view of culture, of different people, it can really be very interesting in collaboration, I mean. All right, Dr. Tachi, today we are looking at pop culture and creativity. And I think, of course, this is at the centerpiece of what you are doing. Now, I believe that there are some people there who yet do not even understand the term pop culture, or who are still grappling with what does it even mean. So clarify that for us.
Pop culture can mean a number of different things. It encompasses a number of different things. So obviously, many of the shows and things that you watch on television, the music that you listen to, whether it's on the radio, on a CD, not on a CD, and it's an MP3, any format that it's on, that's popular culture. It's also things like the foods we eat, news around the foods we eat. I love to cover weird, interesting things that happen around the world. That's part of our popular culture as well. Sports is part of it. So anything that the masses gravitate toward for entertainment purposes, sometimes it's informational as well, that comprises popular culture. So that's like a simple answer.
All right. Now, how do you, okay, now let's look at it also from the point of view of business, because that is important for us, because like you said, in your media production, you also concentrate on business, because of course, that is important for us in the diaspora, because at the point, we need to look for how to retain even the money in the community. So we need to look for a way to teach people how to sort of shift away from just the 9 to 5 to sort of have something of their own that they can be building on the corner. This work can eventually come to replace their work. So the mindset about business is going to be important at the end of the day. So yes. Because we are talking of business, then it will be important that the kind of content that you are creating, there is a lot of intentionality about that. You're not just entertaining people, but there is a strategy around that. So one of those things I think is important for us to consider. Sorry, you don't see me. All right, sorry about that. So no one worries. Thing I was saying is that in that point, it is important that we identify who are we creating the content for. Because you are both creating content and also a professor in this area. So help me understand, how do you define who to create content for, or who are your audience actually at the end of the day? How do you define that?
You know what, that is very interesting. It takes a while. So I think you have an idea of who your audience is going to be before you start. Because I always tell people as I'm teaching this, who cares, right? So you're making this, who cares? That's really how you start the question that starts to determine who your audience is. Well, you can go off of people that are doing things that are similar to you, because probably there would be some crossover in audience. So the first thing you need to do is, once you get your idea, then determine, all right, who else is out there in the space, the content creation space, that is doing what I do or something similar. And everybody thinks that they have something different. You don't. There's always somebody doing something similar. I was taught when I went to film school, there are no new ideas for films or things. It's just the spin you bring to it. So you look at your spin that you bring to it. And then you say to yourself, okay, well, who are their audiences? Who watches them? You should actually be looking and watching to see who else is doing what's similar, because probably what you're going to do would be attractive to them if you are an engaging host, if your topics are engaging, etc. So, and even if it's not a hosted show, if you're making, for example, scripted content, there is probably a script that was similar to yours or is similar to yours. What is it that makes you different? Why should people watch? And then who are the people that watch that other content that is similar to yours, and how can you draw them in? So that's where you start. Now, drawing them in is a different thing. That's consistency. That is time. It does not happen overnight. For some people it may, but that's not the normal story. That's an anomaly.
All right, all right. That is important. That is sort of encouraging now for those who are trying to do everything, yet they are not yet got it there. They shouldn't be discouraged. It takes some time.
Oh,
It takes some
yeah,
time.
it does.
All right. But how did you get into the media yourself? What led you there? You're already a professor. You could say you already are made, as it were, but you still decide to create the content so that you are doing what you are preaching and preaching what you are doing. That is really very interesting for me. But how did you start that part of it?
That makes sense, because I want to practice what I preach. I can't teach people about this if I'm not doing it myself. Theory is not something that is theory is useful in this, but it's more so practice when you're creating content. So I started shortly after I left. I was a professor full-time, and I left full-time in 2015. And at that point was when, and I may have covered this before when we spoke, but at that time was when Meerkat and Periscope popped up. And this offered an opportunity for creators to go live. Now, YouTube was always there, right? Those things, and I've actually been on YouTube since 2006, but I did not create content. I was just a consumer of the content there. And it was difficult to go live to YouTube. It was janky because it was, it's Google. So they had like Google Hangout, basically. That was awful. So I ended up getting on Meerkat, which started first, and then Periscope, and I loved it. It was so cool for the first time to be able to see lots of people broadcast live from where they were. Some people were just doing things like this. Some people were out and about doing live streams of their city. It was I spent so much time on those apps. It was absolutely wonderful. So I said, I want to do that too. But I knew, and this is again something else I teach, you can't just jump into the space. Maybe sometimes you can, but it's good to have an idea of who else is doing what you're doing out there and what is in the space. So I watched for a while. So all of this debuted in March. I got March of 2015. I got on both apps, well, March and then April. Meerkat was March, Periscope was April. So I jumped on both, and I sat and watched what people were doing and participated until July 29th, 2015. So I gave myself a few months and to decide what I wanted to do, because I kept going back and forth. And I said, well, I teach media. I think I'm going to do that. And I'll talk about media news, tech news, and pop culture news. So that's what I ended up doing. And I've been consistent Wednesdays at 6 p.m. ever since then.
And what do you really love about it?
The fact that you get to connect with your audience straight away without having to wait. So for example, if you post a video on a platform, a social platform, people will definitely see it, but you're not getting answers and responses in real time, and people are not able to respond to you in real time. And so That's fine. But then there's that missing piece. With live streaming, you are able to respond to your audience right away. And you're basically having like a big party in real time. I think that's the thing that I love. And the secondly, which is a more, time saving thing, you don't have to edit. You train yourself so that you do what you do and whatever happens, happens, and you learn to overcome it. This is what people who do the news and live TV do all the time. You just have to learn to think on your feet. That is so helpful because it saves you wasting time. It's not a waste of time, but it saves you editing time. But then when you do go to recorded video, if you do recorded video, you already trained to, I'm just going to go with what I have. And there's less editing for you to do because you're not trying to make corrections. Because in live, you can't correct. It happened, so that's what it is.
That's what it is.
Yes, that's what it is.
All right. I like what you said before when you were at the point that you stayed on YouTube for a very long time, but you were really not creating content. You were the consumer, but at the point you decided to create content. And that is the level a lot of people are today. And if you look at the student that you are teaching also at the university, you see that many of them, of course, we end up creating content, we hope, but a lot of people are not going to create content. They are just consumer. I think as of last year, I think it's as of the October of last year, Google said that there are now over 5 billion people on the internet. So the majority of these people are not really creating content. They are just there consuming, sometimes jumping from click to click, unfortunately, But the question, or actually my curiosity is, it would have been more advantageous for us, particularly for people of African descent, if a lot of us were creating content, because it means now we will put more content out there to sort of tell our story and highlight our point of view. Mm-hmm. So the question really is, what would it take for somebody to move from mere consumer to the creator of content? Because you cannot leverage the consumption, you can only leverage the content that you create. Help me with that.
That's an excellent point. More of us need to create content. There is a place for the content consumer as well, because if they are not there, they're not consuming the content, which is they're not consuming your content. So we need them as well.
Absolutely.
But there is room definitely for everyone in the space. I think there are avenues now. So there's no excuse of not having avenues. I think it's just changing the mindset of this being a big, ominous task that cannot be accomplished by the average person, and showing people how it can be accomplished by the average person. That's what I tend to do when I do my video series, Be More. That's what I'm telling people to do, how to do that. So there are lots of people who wanted to, they don't know how to craft their message. They don't know whether their message will be accepted. They don't know how to use the tools. There's enough out there to do it. So the first thing to do is if you have questions, oh my goodness, YouTube University has so much out there. YouTube is the second largest search engine. So all you need to do is go to YouTube and type in what you are looking for. Videos will pop up with that. And YouTube, their algorithm will also give you recommendations. Once you start watching those types of videos, they'll have, well, people also watched this, and you find another person who's teaching you about content creation. So really that's why I love YouTube. It's such a huge resource for knowledge that you can really fix a car, you can do all sorts of things because of YouTube. So I would start there and start looking for videos and creators that are doing what you want to do, and find out there how they're doing it. Even with creators that are not teaching content creation, what they do is in many of them in their comments, they link the equipment that they're using and maybe the software that they're using, because they may be an affiliate, right? Or they may just put it, down in their comments. Take a look at that list and make note of that. That is a guide for you to know what they are using.
Powerful. I remember, for example, in my particular case, I got to Italy in the August of 2004. Of course, I thought when I get to Italy, I was going to be able to get started at the university. That didn't happen because I didn't have paper. I stayed in what you would describe as illegality for a very long time because I didn't have paper, so I couldn't work. So I was just like invisible in the country. And because I really love education, so one day there was this Nigerian who came to the city from Milan. So I was explaining my predicament to him that I was sort of getting frustrated. Why is it like this? Then he told me that he actually went online to study so that I could do the same if I want to. I said, really, is that a possibility? Then I researched, of course, the internet was saying, okay, not as it is today. Now I'm talking of something like around 2010 and all of that. So I went online, I researched, I saw that there was a university, a kind of a program in London called London School of Journalism that offered this online training course on feature writing because I'll be publishing book by them. So I just wanted to improve my skills and of course have a better direction of where I wanted to go in my creative work. So I actually studied with London School of Journalism and I got my diploma there. Then I did another program with New York Film School Direct. I don't know if they have changed it now to learn about filmmaking and media creation. But where I actually got the real training was, like you said, at the YouTube University, because there were a lot of things that I know I needed to do. There was nobody to teach me, so I just need to go there and look at tutorial. That is where I learned practically everything. I have to learn everything from there. So I'm really grateful to YouTube and to the fellow content creator out there who put their content out there to teach people. So of course, like me, there are many people who can also leverage this. It's not everything you need to pay for. Actually, the information is free, but you need to ask for it. You need to be intentional about it. You need to want it because the information, even though it is free, is not going to jump onto your head. You're going to search for it, and you're going to take it. You're going to work the work. Because if you don't work the work, it's not going to happen for you. So I think that is really very important that you point out there that YouTube is actually a university.
It is.
Yeah. All right. Now, I wanted to speak a bit about the second part of the conversation, which is creativity, the role of creativity in pop culture today. What do you have to say about that?
Well, pop culture doesn't exist without creativity. So, at the very base, pop culture is about something being created for the masses to consume on its very surface, whether it's, and I talked about media as pop culture, but and food is pop culture, but it's also cultural artifacts. Let me tell you what's the biggest piece of pop culture. I don't know whether or not you all have them in Italy. Are you in Milan?
No, no, I'm not in Milan. I'm in Verona,
Oh,
close to Venice.
Verona. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether or not you have them where you are, but have you heard of the Stanley tumblers or the Stanley cups?
What is that? No, it's the first time I'm hearing that.
Yeah, no, I figured, and I don't assume everybody knows what we have here. So they are basically tumblers, insulated tumblers that keep drinks hot or cold.
Okay.
So
Kind of.
Stanley is a
Okay. I'm getting it. I'm getting it.
Yeah. So Stanley is a company that has been around since I think it's the late 1800s or early 1900s, and they make I think it's early 1900s, and they make these insulated containers, cups being one of them, that were really aimed at people that were like working construction and needed to keep things hot and cold, and they work really well. They can keep your ice cold for like 24 hours. So they, for some reason, they became big because there were some social media influencers who started talking about them, and then coupled with that, they started to target women as consumers rather than the men that they usually did, by coming up with new colors like lavenders and pinks and light blues, so things that were attractive to, or that they felt would be attractive to women. Well, let me tell you, that was a good marketing move because they have been flying off the shelves. These cups are $45 each. I'm not saying that I'm paying $45 for a cup, but it's working because people buy them, not just one. There are people that buy several in every color. There was a store here that they came out with the ones for Valentine's Day. There's a store here called Target, and they had I think it was a collaboration with Stanley. So they came out with, for Valentine's Day, red and then pink. And they were they were different than what they normally had. People rushed as if Jesus was coming. Seriously, it was that deep for them, and snatched, and they ran out. So to bring it back, that's pop culture as well. Something that becomes such a popular icon amongst the masses that people are going to be talking about this for years. The fact that Stanley was so popular, even when it's getting pushed to the back of the cabinet because nobody is using it anymore. So creativity, that involved creativity, that example right there, to sell a $45 cup, you have to have great marketing. You need to have people that are willing to attest that this is something great, right? They're looking at the aesthetics of it. That's what made it become popular. And this is what has now made it become a pop culture icon. So it's gone from something utilitarian, like a container that keeps things hot and cold, to something that is sought after, that the masses want, that is aesthetically pleasing. So that is all creativity right there. If you look at media works because of creativity. People are drawn to things that are great, that are creative, drawn to scripts that really speak to them. That's creativity, right? And then it takes creativity to get it out there and market it. So creativity is in several levels of pop culture. So hopefully that was clear.
It reminded me of a story I was hearing somewhere. I don't remember whether it was a book I was reading. This person was talking about, of course, the importance of storytelling, because that is where I want to go now. You see that here we are always about storytelling. This guy was making a reference to something that he bought on eBay. I think he spent around $2 to buy the item, just the item. Now, he went recreate the item, add story to it. And the thing moved from $2 around $150, if I'm not mistaken. Then, of course, the price went up very exponentially to, I think, in the terms of thousands at the end of the day. So that if you add story to what you are doing, if you're able to leverage the power of story in what is ordinary, that thing automatically becomes extraordinary. You haven't changed it, it's the same. But because you add story to it, it changes the way it is. As storytelling, we find this to be really very powerful in this sense that it actually shape our perception. It shaped the world that we are. It literally shaped the way we even build our world. The bridge that we build, the houses that we build, the tall building that we created, they're all part of our imagination, and therefore our story, and again, therefore our creativity. Now, the question is, how do we begin to leverage this in what we do, in our narrative, in our media work, so that we are able to help people to understand what we are thinking? And okay, because at the end of the day, you want to influence the perception of the people. That is why you are creating the content, because you want to sort of help people to reflect. Whether it is time of election, you want people to sort of sway towards a particular party or to the other, or to have a better understanding, a better view of the two, so that they can make a choice. In one way or the other, you are influencing the people. But how do you use storytelling to do this? Or what is the role of storytelling in this shaping?
Storytelling is critically important. If you cannot put things in the sequence of events and put it in such a way that people understand it and can follow you, you've lost them. So storytelling is critically important for gaining audiences and keeping audiences. So I'll give for me, I'll start with me, and then I have a good example of this. For me, it's critically important. Even though I am on my shows retelling or recounting news that happens in media, tech, and pop culture, I still have to be able to place it in a way where people can follow the sequence of events and follow the sequence of events in an engaging way, because there are people who tell stories and you get bored and then you leave. So you need to be able to tell them in sequential order, but also be engaging with it. So storytelling is very important to me. I pride myself on storytelling. In addition to the news, I inject examples, inject conversation so that people are following me as well. So it's important, very important to me. I have a good example. You may not have heard about this where you are, but there was, but it was a pretty big story, but you may not have heard about this. There was a content creator here on TikTok who did a 52-part series of her meeting of her ex-husband, to the relationship, to the foolishness that followed, to the divorce, in 52 parts. Each part was about 8 to 10 minutes long. So she had all these hours of content. And for her, it was therapeutic to be able to tell about it, but she also did it as a cautionary tale for other women or other people who may have gotten into a relationship with that same type of personality. The person was like a pathological liar, kept lying about things, and she would find out about these things later. So she wasn't looking to gain anything from it except to get it off of her chest and to let other people know, hey, these are the red flags to look for in these types of relationships. Well, that story took off so much that people were, it was hilarious. People had groups talking about who's watched the next part of it, who's on part 18, and I even went through all 52 parts of it, because if I'm going to report on it, my thing was like, okay, I'm just going to listen to the first two. I listened. It was so engaging. She does such a good job of storytelling that you can't break it up. I sat almost in one sitting and listened to the entire thing as I was working and doing things, because it was that engaging. That is the power of storytelling, to the point that, yes, now she is, well, let me go back to what happened. Everybody was engaged with it. Of course, it's gotten millions and millions of views at this point. She was picked up, the story was picked up by CBS This Morning. Gayle King had actually interviewed her. Also, she was on the Tamron Hall show. Tamron Hall interviewed her. So it got to the mainstream media at first. So started with social media, got to the mainstream media, and now she is repped by one of the biggest Hollywood talent agencies, Creative Artists Agency, or CAA. From her telling her story all the way here. And that's because she's a good storyteller. You don't get picked up by one of the biggest agencies in Hollywood if you are not a good storyteller, but they saw something there, not just her as a personality, but her as a storyteller. If she didn't have a good personality, she may not have been picked up, but her storytelling skills are amazing. So that's an example of why good storytelling is important.
Thank you for that. Now, how do you describe the power of expression in creativity? Because now I want to believe that for the students that are sitting down in your class listening to you, you are also teaching them how to express themselves. Because in storytelling, it is not just about you trying to convince people, but it's also for you therapeutically, like you already have said, no? That as you are doing it, you are also helping yourself. Because you are taking down those information that, depending on the story that you are telling, whether there is a trauma around it, maybe it's something that have happened to you that is torturing you. If you don't express it, it's saying that you are not taking away from your head, you are loading it on your head, and your head is carrying it everywhere you go. But when you talk about it, it's like you are freeing yourself from that burden that you are carrying. So that storytelling, therefore, it can be useful to you, even that is telling the story, as much as it's useful to other people that are listening to it. Because I think that is one of the things that is very important about the storytelling for the content creator, or himself or herself. But how do we develop this ability? Because, like you said, not everybody knows how to tell story, but there are some people that can learn how to tell story. So I'm interested in the learning part of it. So when you talk to your students, what do you tell them where to start from, how to improve on their ability to tell story? Because if you don't tell story the way it should be told, it's not going to land. And if it doesn't land, the people will not follow.
So I'm sure you yourself, from your educational training, remember that the first thing you're taught when it comes to whether it's storytelling for journalism or storytelling for broadcast news journalism or more creative arts, and we're looking at screenwriting and film, beginning, middle, and end, right? Where you're always taught everything has to have a beginning, middle, and end. This happened, then this happened, and it resulted in this. When, then, until, and then the resolution, right? So I kind of teach people, students, and other people that that's where you need to start. So start at the beginning. What happened first? It's almost like when you count first, then, and we conclude. So if you kind of think about it in those four terms, that's helpful with where to go. Because here's the thing, we naturally tell stories in the correct order anyway. If somebody comes to you and said, hey, how was your day? What did you do today? You don't start with, I went to bed. You start with, well, this morning I got up and I actually made a really good breakfast. I needed it. Then after that, I said I was going to go work out. So I went to the gym for a little while. And guess who I ran into at the gym? Angela. I haven't seen her in a long time. So we caught up and we said, you know what? Are you busy? Let's go to lunch. So we went to lunch and we tried that new place over on 14th Street. And it is amazing. You have got to try it. So we said we were going to keep in touch and be better about getting together. And then I actually ended up going to the grocery store. They had a sale on oranges. So I bought a bunch for myself and I bought a bunch for my neighbor. And I came home and I said I was going to make some fresh orange juice because these were so great. So you see what I'm saying? You go in the order of what you do. Most people don't start in the middle. So what you need to think about is beginning, middle, and end. Tell stories in the way you would normally tell stories if you were talking to a friend, talking to a family member, and that is very helpful. I think when we get into, quote, professional storytelling, we freeze and we're like, oh gosh, I don't know how to do this. Well, yes, you do. You tell stories all the time, beginning, middle, and end.
I'm talking of storytelling, I'm talking of creativity and media. There is a new guy in the room. Is the AI. Now, what is the role of AI in the creative industry? What do you say about that? That can take us maybe 2 or 3 questions to go through this.
This could take years to discuss. AI, let me tell you. So let me speak for myself first.
Please.
I really enjoy AI. I see the promise and the future for AI. Anything that allows us to more time to do other things, like connect with other people, I am for. So whereas you had to spend hours and hours doing one thing before, now you can take that time that you saved because AI is helping with it. So for example, I edit all the time. Every day I'm editing something. And actually a very good editor. But when it comes to chopping down smaller bites for social media, I have no problem with doing that. But I often would not do it before because it is time consuming to sit there, scrub through the video, unless I remember the part that I want, and come up with like a YouTube short or a reel for Instagram or a short video for TikTok, etc. That's time consuming. So I just would not do it sometimes. When I had a little bit of time, I would. But now I actually can do more because I use AI tools. So one AI tool I use is called video.ai. And so you put in your video, or you can put in the link from where it is on YouTube, and it will not only draw in the video, but it will make clips for you. And this tool labels the clips, the advent of online shopping, whatever, whatever was being talked about in that particular clip, it will name them for you. It will automatically put the text there, and you can put backgrounds or whatever, right? So it takes a few minutes, and it will say, hey, I generated 41 clips for you. You could go through those clips and decide what you want to use. You could save them for later if you want to come and use a different clip later. That's AI. To sit there and have made 41 clips, you know how long that would have taken? Forever. There's no way. One is challenging. So AI is critically important. That's how I use it. I use other things like ChatGPT, of course. I use lots of different AI tools. And now every platform that we're using has AI involved. So I believe.
All right. How are you able to use AI? Because, okay, it's a technology that has really also been around for a very long time, but it was not in the domain of the public. We didn't have access to it, even though a lot of industry have had access to it for a long time. So it's something that is new to most of us. Okay, I mean, particularly the language model that we are mostly using today after the release of ChatGPT, and of course, all the different applications that were there attached to it, and it basically became a boom, but not many people still know how to use that. So I'm interested in the how. So where do we start from? Or what make it easier for you so that other people can also learn from your experience? Like, for example, when you are talking of editing, like writing, because there is a trap that some people fall into. For example, like ChatGPT, they just put a poor question and they got a poor answer. And sometimes they say, oh, wait, ChatGPT is not good. No, you are not good. You are the one that is not good.
Yeah.
So the thing is a tool, it's a machine. What you get, if you put garbage in, you get garbage out. So help me understand this.
You have to become a prompt engineer. People who know how to do good prompts or craft good prompts are the ones that are going to win in this AI, the generative AI space. So you have to be very specific. I don't know if you've seen the ChatGPT or OpenAI, who owns ChatGPT, has come out with a generative video application called Sora. I don't know if you've seen the videos that Sora has come up with. Yeah. So to come up with something that sharp, that resonant, you have to have excellent prompts. You can't just say, make me a video of a lady walking in the rain. It will come up with, it could be very general with that. You've got to be very specific to what she has on, what she looks like, what the background looks like. Is there reflection on the street in the back because she's walking in the rain? Are there cars on the street? So that's to say that you need to be very specific, have good storytelling skills when it comes to that. And this is where storytellers come in as well. That if you're able to do that from beginning to end, you're probably going to be able to write a good prompt that will come up with good generative AI video, or at least decent at this point AI video. So yeah, you have to be a prompt engineer. And I think it's helpful to think of storytelling. I've come up with some images that I was like, oh, this is good, because I was very specific about what I wanted, down to the colors of what these people had on, down to hair texture, all of those types of things. So you have to be specific and be a prompt engineer.
There are some people that are scared. Of course, it is new now. Everybody is scared of things that are new. The other day, okay, I've interviewed a lot of different AI experts here in this podcast. At some point, I will say to one, of course, I'm going to probably say to you, or maybe put it in it differently, in that imagine the first time that the airplane was created. Now you tell people they're going to enter into something that they're going to take them in the sky. Not that they are going to upsteer. That thing is going to take them and fly across the city. People are going to freak to death thinking that they're going to do that to themselves. Okay, not that, not the aeroplane, the car. The first time the car was designed, and you tell somebody that you will load yourself inside this small thing and it's going to be moving, and not that it's going to be moving, it's going to be moving at a very high speed. There are going to be 2 or 3 on the same place. Then there are going to be maybe like 2 that are coming in the front. Can you imagine what? And what if it catch fire? Okay, what if it jam another one in the front? Because we will see all the negative things because we are not used to it. We have never seen this before. Of course, now everybody is used to that. Now with AI, people are not used to it. Therefore, they leverage the part of the brain that is bringing the fear that it's going to kill you, it's going to do this, it's going to do that for that. People create a lot of stories around it that, okay, don't even go there. You can't even use AI, no? When you hear those kind of story of the phobia about AI, what do you say? How do you respond?
It's valid. There's validity in having fear with things that are unfamiliar to you. There's validity in the fear because of what AI can do. I saw a story the other day where there was a journalist that they was at a conference and they actually did a whole exercise in AI. They created fake stories that looked like they were real, saying that she was having an affair with Mark Zuckerberg, but they were able to create images and stories, and somebody who's not looking closely could think, oh, this is real. Now, of course, they just did this for demonstration purposes, but that's to show that these things can be very damaging if people are not paying attention. And so I understand the fearfulness, but how do you combat fear? Education. You get educated about it because the benefits can far outweigh anything bad that you can do with it. You can do bad things with anything if you think about it, right? It's just that this is the latest new tool that you could do something bad with. But people are also doing a lot of great things with it. In that I was on a show the other day and they talked about the fact that Randy Travis, the country's Western singer from the US, he had a stroke a few years ago, and that has diminished his ability to sing. But using generative AI, he's been able to produce new music using his voice, which is amazing because he can't really sing well anymore. So that's the power of what AI can do. So I think there is warranted fear, but you get over that fear through education and knowing how to use it and being part of the brigade that is using it for good. And I'll talk to us, about those of us that are people of the diaspora. We tend to fall behind all the time when it comes to technology because of fear of technology, because technology in the past has been misused when it comes to people of color, particularly people of African descent. I understand that. But this is something that we cannot fall behind on. We need to be in charge of it to control what comes out of it. For example, like images, because here's the thing. Whenever you go and you to the internet and you look for stock images of things, if you just type in a woman drinking tea, they're going to automatically give you a white woman, you generally drinking tea. That's because these searches are not trained to find people of color usually, because it's usually not people of color coding and programming these things. It's the same thing with AI. You have to train AI to work and automatically think of you as the default rather than the exception. So this is why we need to get involved in it, because if we don't, then other people will tell the story or we will be erased completely from the AI space. We tend to be so scared of these things, but you have to get educated so you can get over the fear and learn to use it for good.
Thank you so much for that. That is very important. It's very, very important, no? In that this is a game. You cannot, there is no other alternative in the sense that as long as you want to play this game, you are going to learn the rules. You are going to jump on board and you are going to play it. It's risky, yes, but it's more risky not even playing it. That is riskier. So it's risky. Let's do it anyway. Only that we need to calculate the risk and play the game. Because you are right, no? If you just ask any of those AI that create images, whether it is Midjourney or Leonardo AI, to give you an image. Of course, they will give you the default, but because the default is what they were used to train them, it is up to us to tell the AI that there is an alternative to that by the type of prompt that we are cracking into the machine.
Absolutely. And they're not the default. I'm like, there are more people of color in the world than there are people that are not of color. So when we talk about the default, they are not the default. This is no disrespect to anyone, but there's more people of color in the world. Let's be honest. So that when we're looking at that, if you want to talk about a default, people of color should be the default because we constitute the largest worldwide.
That's very
a whole
important.
other conversation.
Yeah. That's going to break somebody's heart. But anyway, here when we talk about story, sometimes we can be really wide here in taking up issues. No, but anyway, we're not really on the topic of of history today. Yeah. But so we can just spare that conversation. Now, exactly. I'm looking at the possibility that AI can have on Africans and Africa in terms of the content that we can create. Now, let me explain what I mean. You see, where I am coming from, southern Nigeria, in my part of Nigeria, which is Uromi, for example, there have been significant historical events which I cannot read anywhere in any book. But this is because people didn't feel it was necessary, maybe, or it's just part of our culture not to document our experiences. But the time passes and this memory fade. Now, somebody come to contest it that memory was never there. The person can contest it because we didn't take the time to document it. What if, because of AI, we can actually take advantage of those experiences, go and make it from the mind of the people? Because there are still a lot of elders who know this event, who we can ask, please explain to me what happened. What did you learn from your father, from your grandfather, and from your great-grandfather? What they told you about this event. When we take those events, we will reconstruct them, and through the power of AI, we will come out with something great that we can leave behind. Now, there is something important. We're not going to live forever in the sense that we're not always going to be here.
Right.
200 years from now, 300 years from now, 500 years from now, the same argument is still coming around again. Because, if we don't do it now, those children that are going to be here are going to struggle again to ask, but what were their experiences? Because if you don't put it down, they cannot know it. I understand that there are different ways of recording our history. But we are living in this time now. We are living in this reality where you need to prove with evidence. We need to have it in books, have it in audio, have it in video. Why don't we use AI to do this thing? Think, for example, of the Library of Timbuktu. I was asking, talking to, I think, somebody from the National Geographic the other day. I was saying, those books, are they actually documented in the sense of, are they transcribed? I don't think they are transcribed. Because the Library of Timbuktu, that would be like the Library of Alexandria that was burnt in Egypt. If those documents are available in a digital format, then people can leverage it. So how do you see the potential of AI in us readdressing again or redressing again our history, our experiences in a way that it can be available for somebody to see, to touch, to hear, and to feel?
Very important. AI is critically important in this. I think it can help to fill in gaps where we're not quite sure what this is. I think it can help to fill in gaps. And I'm thinking of how they use, for example, generative models. And that was like it wasn't quite AI, but early AI, maybe, how they reconstructed how, for example, King Tutankhamun would have looked based off of the mummy that they found. And filled in, this is probably how he looked. That's something that AI could do very well, right? So that's actually filling in history when you do things like that. I think that this can't come from anyone else. Sometimes and there's a whole historical thing to this, but we have to be the ones to take up the cause for using AI to document, to train on our stories, etc. Part of the thing is, and this goes beyond AI, this is even before you involve AI, we have to get people interested enough in preserving the history beyond the oral tradition. And the oral tradition is very important, but stories get changed, people forget things, so we have to start to document this. And there need to be lots of historians, African historians, that will document properly what is done. Now, it's already starting to happen. We see a lot of these things, but a lot of the documentation much of the documentation that we get exposed to often is in the form of, I don't want to say prose, but is in stories like, for example, Chinua Achebe, he does an amazing job of recounting ancient Igbo Africa, right? Before pre-colonial. He does a really good job of that and is wrapped up in a story, which is great. But do we have the historical books, facts, that people can just go and get? Now, some of it exists, but not to the extent that we see it in Europe, etc. And again, I'm not trying to say that we need to be Europe, but definitely for a culture to exist, it needs to be, traditions, etc., need to be passed on. Otherwise, things cease to exist. Look at the languages, many languages that have gone by the wayside. So I think it starts with us first. And then once we're solid in, we're going to do this, we are interested in preserving our culture, then that's when you involve AI to fill in gaps, to help with things. So, but it starts on a basic level with us.
But why are we not interested in our story? Now, I want to touch again before you respond there that,
yeah,
you see, I repeat again, I grew up in Uromi, which is my town in southern Nigeria. Now I'm working I'm not a historian, but at least in my little way, I'm trying to look at different experiences that have happened in Esan. There is a king in my town. It was the king of Uromi. Okay, in Uromi, we would actually say king. We call the Onoji, no? It was the Onoji of Uromi. That is in the 1400. Now, the Onoji, the name is Agba Noje. Okay. He actually had a fight with the Oba of Benin, Oba Ozola. So Oba Ozola didn't really die in Benin. Oba Ozola died in Esan. Because there was this war that was really very fierce at the time. I think the war was fought in 5000 to 5001. That was when the war was fought, about that period. Now, this Oba, this Odoje of Uromi, when he died, the Uromi army deified him so that he became God. He is therefore known as a god of war. Now, it becomes very interesting now again in that the founding of Lagos is the Benin. But names, places in Lagos are not really typically the Benin name. They are typically Esan name, like Idumu. Now, what does Idumu? Idumu is a typical Esan name. Like, for example, Idumota, Idumagwe, those are names when I say Idumu, no? Eko, for example, is not a Benin name, it's an Esan name. Eko meaning camp. Because when the Benin wanted to build this space, the Lagos, to favor the trade that was going on between the Benin Empire and the Portuguese, that was when it was actually, the people actually needed this warrior, because they needed to fight, they needed to do some things and all of that. That was when Lagos was actually founded. Not the whole of Lagos. The Oba of Benin, the current Oba of Benin, of course, confirmed it when he went to Lagos the other day. So all these are on record. But what I'm saying now is that I can't take up any book to read about this man. It's not because there are no educated people in Uromi. There are professors. There is even a university close by, the university, Abrosale University. We should have a lot of books, not one, not two, 10 volumes of books that talk about this man. He's referred to as the god of war. But what has been his war? Which war did he fight? How many war? What are the instruments? What weapon did they use to fight this war? What were the strategy? We need to, because if we don't explain it appears that it really didn't exist, that it's just a folklore. It's not a folklore. It's a historical event. That is one. Now, in the build-up to the slave trade, There were a lot of war that were fought in Esan to capture people that would later be sold into slavery. And this would be the Americans of today. Now, who is going to tell this story? We cannot just delegate this work to some European adventurers who maybe come to Nigeria sometime and decide to say, okay, we discovered the non culture. The non culture is living for 3,000 years or about 3,000 years. The job of documenting that history, of explaining their culture, their language, their food, going to find their bone to test it and date it. That is the work of the Nigerian people. Because it is hard. We can't expect foreigners to do the hard job for us. So this is where I'm like sort of saying that maybe the AI, the new technology of the day, can help us to reconstruct this. The other day I was interviewing an engineer in the University of Jos, because we're talking of building, because now if you look at the building that we build in Nigeria, that's also supposed to be a signature of what is the Nigerian building should look like. Then I was saying, okay, now you are living in Jos. Because the Jos people, there is a place in Jos called the non-culture. These people have been living for like about 2,000 years, more than 2,000 years. What can we learn about them from the point of view of architecture? How did they design their city? I'm very sorry to say, this professor have nothing to tell me about it.
So that original question of why don't we care or why don't we document these things? I will go back to colonialism. Not that we can blame everything for that, but colonialism did a good job of teaching us what was important, meaning what they thought we should do and what we should know, to the point of you see the predominant things that people study. For example, when you go to university, you're supposed to be a doctor, right? You're supposed to be a lawyer. You're supposed to be an engineer. All of these other things go by the wayside, right? So that historians, because we have accepted that we've accepted the European lens of what is important. Therefore, our history tends to be less important to us. Also, let's be honest. There's no big money when it comes to documenting history. It's a labor of love. Now, of course, there are things like grants, etc., and I'm not as familiar there with what the grants and things could be, but there are, grants and things, but is that really enough? So then you talk about on a country level, that has to be something that the country deems important, that we want to put money behind this to document our history because our various cultures are important to us. But if they're not doing it, we already see that many countries, what their focus is, and it's not that. So if you don't have the money for me to do this, I can't starve because, I'm doing this for the culture. And it is important, but I think there has to be a real effort to actually put some money behind it, because it does take money, because it takes time to document this properly. There has to be an effort, a national effort to make that the case, because that's also the way you're going to get younger people involved who would be able to do this. How many people are actually studying history, for example, in Nigeria? How many people make that their major thing? Probably not many.
They even took out history from curriculum a number of years. I interviewed some people about it. That is horrible.
It's awful. So if it's not important to the country, it's not important to the local government, it's not going to be important to the people. And then you've been teaching that this is the way that you can amass wealth or amass money, and it's all these things outside of history. So again, that's going to have to be something that is a national effort to solve, and it needs younger people to come in and do it, and it cannot be outsiders. Outsiders sometimes have other agendas. It needs to be people within the country that are going to be interested in documenting the history and preserving the history.
Let's look a little bit on another part of it that can be really very interesting, the business side of it. Because I believe that a lot of money can actually be made in the media world. If we are able to create content of value that people would like, the money can be made from there. Look at, for example, at the model of YouTube You put a content there, then YouTube, of course, Google basically make their money from ads, no? That
Yeah.
they run ads, so they make money through advertisement. And of
Mhm.
course, this also can also very be complicated in that depending on them what they want, they decide what they want to place there. If you create a certain type of content that doesn't align with them, even though they make money, they might not, they might actually strike you out. But if we have our medium, our way of maybe our proprietary platform where we can host our content, then this can be advantageous for us at a point. But then that is, by the way, what I'm saying is that there are models that are being demonstrated out there that you can make money from creating content. But how do we really build a business around that? Because now we are trying to encourage Africans, those that are at home and those that are abroad, to create content that you can actually make money out of that. This have been proven. But how do we build businesses around this area so that they understand that you are not just doing it for doing it, that you can turn it into a business for yourself?
First of all, you have to see it as a business. And it's important that you brought this up. When you are a content creator, you are, in a sense, you are running a business, right? Even if you have another job, you are creating content. You are in the business of creating content. So you are definitely running a business. Now, what you need to do is take it seriously as a business. If it is a hobby for you, that's fine. That's another thing. But if you are intending to make money from this, you need to look at this as a business venture, because believe me, your state will, your country will. So you need to look at this as a business. So what, say to yourself, okay, what, start to formulate your business. What is it? It's a content creation business. Are you doing this just for yourself? Or are you also doing this for other people? Are you creating content like in the form of UGC, user generated content? Do you have brand deals and brand partnerships that you are partnered up with to create content? Okay, this now becomes business because now you're getting paid for it, and somebody's going to want to see taxes off of it depending on where you live, right? So you definitely need to have business protections in place because you are taking in money. You are the business. So what do you need to do to register your business in the province or state or area that you live in? Every country has their rules in terms of how you do that. So make sure you go and find out, how do I, for example, register the business? How do I form an LLC? How do I form whatever legal entity it is for that business in whatever country you're in? Find out how to do it that way so that you have those protections when it comes to that. Because if you start bringing in, a lot of money, that's something to think about. So that's how you start to form it as a business. And then, start looking for uh, these things. When you're in business, businesses are always looking for partners, right? Things like that. Start seeking out those partners, those brand partnerships, those collaborations, etc. Look at those types of things. And so whenever you look at YouTube, for example, or even any social media where you see the paid partnership, that's a brand sponsorship. That's a brand deal. And that means you're bringing in some kind of money. It's a different thing if it's like in kind stuff, like you've gotten stuff for it, you've gotten product for it rather than money. But once you start bringing in money, you really need to look at, how do I make myself a legal entity?
That's important. Right now, yeah, we have had a good time here talking about media, creativity, and pop culture. I think this is really a very interesting conversation. Now, looking into the future, where do you see the role of a content creator and the e-business that we are having it today? Because as you create a content, you can also turn it into a business. That is what we are trying to get into the mind of the people. Where do you see this going in the future? If you look at maybe like 10 years, 20 years from now, which role do you think these people are going to be playing? I mean, those that are creating content.
Content creation is the future. Independent content creation is the future. There are too few slots in traditional media for everyone that has a message. And these messages are so important and fun, etc. So it is definitely the future. I see a growth when it comes to that. I see a little bit of, when it comes to, for example, influencer culture, I see a little bit of a decrease in that because brands are not doing as much with them, but there probably will be a resurgence soon. But content creation is the future. The methods of delivery for media have changed, and the amount of people have changed making it, which means meaning there are more that are interested in making the content. And now we have all these avenues like YouTube. We have every social media. I keep pointing to YouTube because that was the original long form media place. So you have all of these avenues. People are just going to get more and more interested in it. And you know what really sparked that was the pandemic and the lockdown. And when people could not get into studios in traditional media, it was those of us that were content creators on social media that provided the content out there. And we took that and ran. We've always been creating that content, but I think that's really when it exploded, and we've taken it and run. And so I think the future is more of this. AI is going to get more involved in it, definitely. But we shouldn't be scared because the people who AI can never be you.
Thank you so much for that. All right, now for people who want to sort of learn more about what you're doing, they want to connect with you, please share with them how they can reach you.
Absolutely. I am very reachable on Instagram. For some reason, I tend to be there a lot. So if you go to Instagram, I am at dr underscore TACHI. So at Dr. underscore Tachi. Send me a message there. You can also please check out the network. It is called Indie Soup Media, INDIESOUP media.tv. You could go to the website and you could actually watch the channel from the website. Again, the hours of broadcasting new content is from on Monday through Friday from 4 p.m. Eastern time to about 9:30, and then on Fridays from 5 p.m. Eastern time to about 9:30, 10.
Absolutely. That is noted. Now, what would be your final thought here on the conversation that we have had today, talking about media, creativity, and of course, why not the pop culture? Conclude it in your own way.
Get involved in this game. If you don't get involved in the game to tell your stories, other people will tell them for you. There's no reason and no excuse that you are not doing it. All of this just takes time to build, and for you to get better at it, it just takes practice, which is time and effort and consistency. So get involved in the game. All of us have a creative streak to us. Some people think you don't, but everybody has some level of creativity. If your level of creativity is pushing you toward making a podcast, a live stream, doing videos on YouTube, producing TikTok videos, then do it. Just sit down and decide what your message is going to be. Tell the story from beginning to end and get it done. You will find your audience.
That's a good advice. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it, sister.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.